Hi guys, what's up? Today we're going to talk about autonomic nervous system, okay? So, we're going to discuss just the basic anatomy of the autonomic nervous system. Let's write the topic here. Autonomic nervous system, right? So, in autonomic nervous system, the whole system is divided into two basic categories. The first one is parasympathetic autonomic nervous system, and the second one is sympathetic autonomic nervous system, right? And now let's draw some kind of matchstick figure of this system. So suppose this is your spinal cord, right? And as you know that in the spinal cord there are different divisions of its part, or simply it is divided into different parts, like the cervical area, the thoracic area, the lumbar, and the sacral. So, and from the gross anatomy, we have known that the parasympathetic system keeps out its fibers from the cranial area and from the sacral area, right? And the sympathetic nervous system gives its fiber from the thoracic area and the lumbar area. So to make the things easier, let's write the sacral here. Let's assume this is your craniosacral area. Let's assume this is your thoracolumbar area, right? Now, this part of the spinal cord, the craniosacral part, which is a part of the parasympathetic system, it has to communicate with its receptor, right? By now we must know that there are different kinds of receptors, and then the parasympathetic nerve fibers act on, and the sympathetic nerve fibers act on. So the major receptor of the parasympathetic nervous system is muscarinic receptor, which is represented by M here, and the sympathetic fibers that comes from the thoracolumbar area that communicate with different receptors like alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2, and beta 3, and so on. And it even communicates with muscarinic receptor, right? We'll talk about this receptor possibly in the next video, but for now, let's understand this much. So how this nerve fibers from the parasympathetic autonomic nervous system communicates with that receptor, and how the fibers from this sympathetic autonomic nervous system communicates with its receptors. So let me draw a fiber. Suppose this is a fiber, and this is a ganglion, and this is another fiber. So the fiber that is present before the ganglion, this is called preganglionic fiber, right? Preganglionic fiber, and the fiber that is present beyond the ganglion, that's postganglionic fibers. Now, let's make the same kind of figure here. Let me draw the fiber. Here is a ganglion, and here comes next fiber. So if this is ganglion, this is preganglionic fiber. And if this is ganglion, this is postganglionic fiber, right? So by now, by looking at this picture, you must figure out that the preganglionic fiber of the parasympathetic nervous system is longer than the preganglionic fiber of the sympathetic nervous system, and the postganglionic fibers are shorter in comparison to the postganglionic fibers of the sympathetic nervous system, right? Now, what is the main neurotransmitter that helps the spinal cord area of the parasympathetic nervous system, autonomic nervous system, communicate with these muscarinic receptors? So the parasympathetic part of the spinal cord first releases acetylcholine. So the preganglionic fibers and the postganglionic fiber releases acetylcholine to this muscarinic receptor. Now you see the major neurotransmitter for the fibers of the parasympathetic autonomic nervous system is acetylcholine. And for the preganglionic fiber of the sympathetic nervous system, it is again acetylcholine. But what is the main neurotransmitter for the postganglionic fibers of the sympathetic nervous system? That is not acetylcholine, that is norepinephrine, right? So norepinephrine happens to be major or normal neurotransmitter that is used by the postganglionic fibers to communicate with the receptors. So now you see these are different types of receptors the sympathetic nervous system communicate with, right? Now let me draw this figure a bit longer. Now I've drawn this ganglion here, right? So what type of receptor can you find this ganglion? In this ganglion you will find a nicotinic receptor, and also in nicotinic receptor we have two main types, that is neuronal and that is neuromuscular. So since this is ganglion, we find N sub N type of nicotinic receptor, and since this is ganglion, we find N sub N type of nicotinic receptor. Right, now again, suppose we have next fiber coming out from the sympathetic nervous system, right? Here is your ganglion that has N sub N receptor, and that from the ganglion, the postganglionic fiber goes into the alpha 2. Again, suppose there is another fiber that comes into the ganglion which has the N sub N receptor, and that goes by the postganglionic fibers into the beta 1. And again, there is another preganglion fiber that goes into the this ganglion. The ganglion has N sub N on the receptor, and from here the postganglionic fiber goes to beta 1. And again, there is another preganglionic fiber, and here's ganglion, and here is N sub N receptor, and from here it goes into the muscarinic receptor. Now see here, I've drawn the figures, I've drawn the nerve fibers for all the receptors except beta 2. Why? Why the beta 2 does not have nerve supply? Because the mother nature had a different plan for this beta 2 receptor. What was the plan? Actually, the mother nature created preganglionic fiber for this beta 2 also, but by some mistake, or let's say by maybe she had different plans, so she only made preganglionic fibers and the ganglion. And now there is no connection with the beta 2 receptor, but sympathetic nervous system has to communicate with beta 2 because beta 2, these receptors are present in the blood vessels, and this helps in vasodilation, right? So anyhow, the sympathetic nerve fibers has to connect with the beta 2, but how? There's no any connection, so it's kind of wireless connection for the beta 2. So nature corrected this mistake by giving the giving a job to the adrenal medulla to create something that helps in communication with beta 2. So I said here is norepinephrine as a major. This norepinephrine is a major means of communication to the alpha 1, right? So for alpha 2, again, it's norepinephrine, and for beta 1, it's again norepinephrine, right? So these are the adrenergic. Norepinephrine using the receptors, these are adrenergic receptors. And here, and for beta 1 also, that is norepinephrine. But here is no nerve supply for beta 2, so right? So what can be the best neurotransmitter for beta 2? Can it be norepinephrine again? No. Why? Because norepinephrine has short half-life. So when norepinephrine is released in the blood, by the time it reaches the beta 2, it had been already degraded. So norepinephrine was not chosen as a neurotransmitter or means of communication for the beta 2. So epinephrine was designed as the main neurotransmitter or main means of communication with the beta 2 from this sympathetic nervous system. Right? So you know, adrenal medulla that secretes epinephrine. It also secretes norepinephrine to some extent, but major portion is epinephrine. Now you see this epinephrine, even if it has no nerve supply, it can go into the beta 2. Now, Actually, epinephrine was created for beta 2, right? But all the receptors can be benefited by this, because epinephrine by the blood can go into the alpha 1, can go into the alpha 2, can go into the beta 1, or beta 2 and B and M, and all over the place epinephrine can go. So now you see here the main staple neurotransmitter for the parasympathetic nervous system was acetylcholine. The preganglionic fibers also had acetylcholine, and the postganglionic fibers also had the acetylcholine as a main neurotransmitter. But now you see here, in the sympathetic autonomic nervous system, the preganglionic fibers have same ACH, same acetylcholine, right? But the neurotransmitters through the postganglionic fibers are changing. Okay, for alpha 1 same, for alpha 2 same, for beta 1 same, but for beta 2 it had changed to epinephrine, not epinephrine, right? And for beta 1 it's norepinephrine. But here is another exception that we have to remember from exam point of view, because since it is muscarinic receptor, it doesn't work with this norepinephrine, so it again demands acetylcholine. So now you see here, although this is the fibers coming out from the sympathetic nervous system, it is using acetylcholine in the preganglionic fibers, and it is again using acetylcholine in the postganglionic fibers. So this comes as the famous and very important exceptions in the autonomic nervous system, that autonomic nervous system's sympathetic part also uses muscarinic receptor, and then muscarinic receptor is supplied by acetylcholine, be it in the parasympathetic system or be it in the sympathetic nervous system, right? So these are the things we need to take care of while starting the autonomic nervous system, right? So these are things, and we'll most probably we'll talk about the receptors in detail in the next coming videos. So this much for today. We'll meet in the next video. Thank you.